Welcome to the HR Chat Show, one of the world's most downloaded and shared podcasts designed for HR pros, talent execs, tech enthusiasts, and business leaders. For hundreds more episodes and what's new in the world of work, subscribe to the show, follow us on social media, and visit hrgazette.com.
Hello, and welcome to the HR Chat Podcast. I'm Pauline James, founder and CEO of Anchor HR and associate editor of the HR Gazette. It's my pleasure to be your host, along with David Krillman, CEO of Krillman Research. We're partnering with the HR Chat Podcast on a series to help HR professionals and leaders navigate AI's impact on organizations, jobs, and people.
In this episode, we speak with Kim Chaumillon, a seasoned HR executive and forward-thinking fractional chief people officer. Kim brings over 30 years of global HR experience with a passion for reinventing traditional people practices to support growth, adaptability, and performance in fast-changing environments. Kim shares her proactive, hands-on approach to embedding AI in HR, from championing HR goes first, to curating practical use cases, to experimenting with agentic AI, and even vibe coding custom solutions. We explore how she's enabling her teams to develop AI fluency, fostering smart cross-functional partnerships, and creating future-ready governance frameworks. Whether you're just starting to explore AI in HR or you're looking to deepen your impact, Kim offers inspiring, actionable insights on how HR can and should lead the way.
Kim, we're so pleased to have this time with you to hear your insights about how you, your team, your organization are leveraging AI. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and your current work?
Yes. First of all, thanks for having me here and giving me the opportunity to share my experience. I have about 30 years of global HR experience, mostly in tech companies, and in the latter half of my career in executive leadership roles. Honestly, I've spent the second half of my career, I would say, throwing out the old HR playbook and rethinking how work gets done in more complex, fast-changing environments. I think I have some specialty around designing human-centered systems that really support organizations' performance, growth, and adaptability. I currently serve as a fractional chief people officer for two companies. One is a smaller boutique professional services firm in the innovation space, and the other is a tech company startup with cutting-edge hardware and software solutions for the connected device supply chain, particularly reverse logistics part for mobile phones. And I'm just really working to embed AI into our people practices and their business practices so that both the business and its people can thrive.
So what has been your strategy about getting AI into HR, into what HR is doing?
Well, I have, anybody who's ever worked for me knows that I have a mantra, which is HR goes first, whether it be rolling out a new performance management system or a new way of thinking about work. I always believe that HR goes first. So that is the place where I'm starting, is that in order for HR to be those who help guide the organization, and I do think there is a pivotal role, like there's lots of places that AI could sit in an organization, but it really, my point of view is it should sit in HR to be driving this. But in order for us to drive it, we absolutely have to understand it and use it ourselves. So that's the first place where I've expected, required, enabled, supported the HR team to play with the tools since they first started coming out. And then because it's moving so fast, is continually trying to stay up with it. And that's my first place that I'm starting, is our own adoption of it.
Yeah, and just to dig a little bit deeper into HR going first, what does IT say when you say actually AI is something HR should be leading?
I've always been fortunate to have a partner in IT. I look at it as a partnership. I feel that HR has two teams that we can commiserate with, finance and IT, because we both live in the support world and we both live in a resource-constrained world. And if we're working together, I believe that it's the three-legged stool of people, process, and place, that those three teams come together. So I've really tried to bring those people along to help them be more strategic, but also in a manipulative isn't the right word, but a self-interested way that they're not working against me. So it's like, hey, this is an opportunity for you to really add more value. And in working together, we can find a way to add more value to the business.
So you said one of the first things you did is to get the HR professionals themselves involved in using AI. Can you tell me some of the specifics about how you got that happening?
Because I understand sometimes the first barrier to something new, like I'm personally wired as an early adopter, and my number one strength in StrengthsFinder is learner. I value learning all day, all long, and I realize not everyone's wired that way. So I try to curate the most important things and then share what I'm doing with it and give people use cases. So then like go try to, instead of writing that policy by hand, why don't you ask, when generative AI was popular, why don't you try that? Or, hey, I think this needs to be reworked. Would you go prompt AI to ask for its opinion about what, so I try to give use cases and try to point people to tools because I'm leading edge in terms of trying them out. And I know that I've heard a lot with AI is the obstacle is people, maybe they tried out ChatGPT 2 years ago and it gave some weird response and they never went back, or they tried a couple prompts and it didn't work and they didn't go back. And yet this technology is moving so fast that it works better every week that you try it. So to try to encourage people to keep going back out at it. That's the main thing. And then back to your IT question, trying to be a little disruptive, because what happens in organizations right now is not a lot of systems are approved for use within the company. But I have agreed to pay for people's memberships, encourage them to use the tools with the right guidelines and guardrails. Like, it's fine to ask it questions. It's fine to ask it to help you. Just don't put any confidential information in there from the company. And you can use ChatGPT, or I have most of my team on Berson's Galileo. It was one of the first ones that we started using that's HR specific. In short, what I try to do is curate and recommend use cases and ask specifically for people to use it for certain tasks.
Thank you. I love those examples and how practical they are to leverage and also to encourage adoption. Have there been tools that you've adopted within HR?
I would say we're on that curve of, the first wave was generative AI, and we are now, most of my team is using generative AI on a daily basis, and using generative AI both for first drafting, for brainstorming. I need to write this better, so revisioning, but also for brainstorming and sense making. Like, I'm trying to figure out what to do next. How should I be thinking about it? So I think my team is largely using it for all of those use cases. We are now on to the Agentic phase and trying to figure out how we implement Agentic AI. I just had a team meeting yesterday, in fact, where we're really trying to say, okay, we all should be using AI daily from a generative AI capability. We need to move to Agentic. And so I mapped out a decision tree around where I think Agentic is going, which I can walk you through how I'm thinking about it. One, I think there's two pieces to the initial part of the tree. There's bespoke Agentic solutions, and there's existing solutions with AI embedded. So as we said, where are we going to implement agents? If I look at that existing solutions that have AI embedded, we either need to enable it within the current solutions that we have. For example, in one of the organizations, we use Lattice, and Lattice has just rolled out some AI capability. So we need to figure that out, implement it, structure it however we need to, and just turn it on and try it out. There's other solutions. We have an applicant tracking system that I will not mention by name that is not really best in class associated with this. So what we are going to do, because we believe that recruiting is one of the key places where agentic AI in HR is going to be force multiplier. And so we're looking to just switch to the solution that is out there that delivers the best embedded agentic AI solution. So that's kind of for the world of existing solutions. And then for bespoke solutions, I see three key paths. There is the work that we do that is repetitive and low value add that we could turn agentic, and we can put an agent on checking to see how many employees have completed their compliance training and send them reminders and pester them. The other place is disruptive. What are the things that we could up our game in people and culture if we had this capability? Could we could we consume all of the data around our people, download all their LinkedIn profiles, map it to their jobs, and really scenario plan, organizational design, and workforce planning growth, like something totally would have been impossible for us to do right now. So disruptive. And then the third one is what I call the chief of staff solution. How do we, and it's fairly generic, but some sort of custom solution that manages all of our time and the team's work that we're doing and sits over top of our Trello boards, our task lists, our calendars, and is custom to how we want to manage our work and helps us manage the work. Because my dream, and I'm slowly building it, is I actually want a micromanager for me personally. If I think about the best use of AI for me, it is somebody that I wake up every morning like a chief of staff, and they're like, Kim, your day is to do this, this, and this. These are the strategic things. You need to time block this. Don't forget to follow up with this. Like something that just manages us all so that the people leaders and me as a leader of the team, I'm not managing the work. I'm just managing the people.
I love that. And I love just how you're embracing that this is enabling technology and how you're going about lifting the skill set of your team and considering the use cases. You mentioned also at the outset partnering with the business, considering business use cases. How has it been implemented throughout the organization?
It's interesting because I've got two different organizations. The professional services firm that I've worked for the last couple of years, I was their chief people officer, and then I've transitioned just to a fractional role as they've changed scope and size, and that made more sense for them. They have been at the cutting edge of AI adoption, and probably for a solid 2 years now had created their own in-house model, or not in-house instance, that allowed us to, they taught it all of our methodology, they taught it our tone, and it was really a place that you could leverage. They really rethought a lot of their work and how they could enable it through AI. So I've seen that where it's completely embedded in that business. It is business led. It is core to how they think about being able to accelerate the work that they do. In the other organization, the tech organization that I'm in, I would say it's been slower, partly because the company has been on a rapid growth tear during this key moment in the last year, and there just hasn't been the headspace for people to think about what it means. We're experiencing a little bit of a lull. The founder and CEO has also personally discovered the value of AI, so we're at the early stages. I'm sort of this leading edge catalyst right now that's pushing the organization to adopt AI, because I see for a startup that this is going to be a massive solve for how do we scale the company, because we don't have to do so much hiring, or we could be much more intentional in our hiring to create scale and profitability, quite frankly, for the company. So if we could do more with the same amount of people, or go faster with the same amount of people, that is really compelling to investors. And so I've got two different environments that I'm working in. One I'm the catalyst in, and one I'm, just following the business.
Now, you talked a little bit about the guidelines. Do you have a governance committee, or just generally how do you approach governance?
In both organizations, I am on the kind of AI committee. That would probably be a fancy word. It's like me and the IT leader working in concert to define guidelines and guardrails. So in both organizations, we have stated policies associated with what you can do, what you can't do associated with them, but also recommendations around how we want people to think about it. When I came into the current organization, the tech organization, they had more policy around it. And it was more like, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. We did an all hands meeting about 3 weeks ago where I had the CEO do similar to the Shopify. In any case, the CEOs come out and declare, Duolingo was the other one. So he did a similar thing. And with that, we produced a set of guidelines which shared more like, here's how you would use it. Use it for first draft. Use it for brainstorming. Here's the generative AI. So we've helped people understand when they might want to use it. And then within that context, what is okay and what is not okay.
Yeah, and by the way, that's very innovative, because all I ever hear are people saying, don't do this, don't do that, don't do the other thing, be scared. Maybe not the best way to present an important new technology.
Yeah. No, because it's understandable. If anybody has any risk aversion, they might think, well, why would I do this? So like the previous policy was like, you can't use anything but the company approved solution. And now we have, you can use other solutions as long as you're not using and feeding company information into it. But if you're like, how should I think about planning my day? It's fine to use ChatGPT. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
What about ethical guidelines or concerns?
Yeah, we've actually had a number of employees who have raised the concerns around the environment and how are we thinking about the environmental aspect of compute time. I think that is a factor. The industry seems to be aware of it. I don't honestly know how we're going to manage through that. I do think about it when I ask for long prompts or I see it going away and doing a bunch of work. I think about, trees being cut down somewhere or power lines transmitting. So there's that environmental ethics side of it. And then there is the model bias. I do follow OpenAI and Sam Altman and some of the key leaders in this, and they seem to be deeply sensitive to the risks associated with it. And one of the things that we include in our guidelines for employees is, like, there was a period of time with the release of Open with 4.0 Mini, and that it was very obsequious, and sometimes the the models are driven towards people pleasing, and that can reinforce existing biases. And so I think the skill to teach people is to ask the AI to adopt a different perspective or to critique what you're thinking so that we don't reinforce existing biases. So I think there's going to be some user requirement to mitigate the bias, and also just some sort of, like we say, media literacy, AI literacy, to understand what might be going on in the background.
I really like how you're tapping into the risk of not using AI and also how we can leverage the technology to help us be less biased, especially by using it as a thought partner and to critique our work. Often we're not as evidence-based. When we endeavor our human skills and ability to influence and assess situations, we're not always being evidence-based, but that human touch is so important, and we can actually leverage AI in that way as a coach to support us.
Yeah, I do wonder, there's some wonderful tools out there. For example, Zoom in their AI transcripting has a meeting coach built into Zoom. Don't know if you've ever played with that, but as the meeting host, it will tell you how many times you ummed and awed. It'll give you a score. It will tell you how much you dominated the conversation. And you can even ask it, how could I have run a better meeting? And it will give you feedback. I'm always really interested in how we unlock a culture of feedback in organizations, because that is the bane of HR, of people, of how do we improve performance? We know that we improve performance with feedback. Feedback is really rough to give for all the reasons that we know. Feedback is really hard to ask for. And all of a sudden we have this tool that you can ask for feedback, and I know for myself, I'm much more open to the feedback that AI is going to give me around my ideas, because it's super safe. And it's a great place to say, how could I do better? How could I write this better? What's flawed in my thinking? And that's the place where I really encourage people to play with it, because it's pretty good, honestly.
Thank you. With you sharing the use cases and how you've been approaching it with this organization, there's been lots of advice embedded in what you've relayed to us. Is there other specific advice that you would share with our audience, with HR leaders?
I think what's great about this is, during COVID, let me back up, let me restate this. I think the opportunity here is for HR to lead in a place that is creative. I recall during COVID, the expression was, during the financial crisis of 2008, finance was the organization that really mattered. In COVID, it was HR. Like, all the attention was on HR to get us through this safely, to plan return to work. And it felt like it was all HR all the time. But in this crazy, reactive, unfun place, having lived through that, this feels like a place where HR can lead in a thing that really, really matters for our organizations and for our people. So that's what I'm excited. It's like HR has always wanted to have a seat at the table and be seen as business driven and business focused. And this seems like this perfect blend of really, really high business value, but significant impact on people, with change management, with understanding work. David and I have worked many years looking at how do we move away from the jobs model? How do we deconstruct work? And to me, this creates this tremendous tool that requires us to really understand the work, think about how the work gets done, redesign the work, so that we can bring AI into where it is. So I guess my main advice is lean into it and don't be afraid of it. It is the opportunity of a lifetime in HR. I was on the verge of retiring this year, and I've decided to stay in the game just because I want to see this through. I think it's going to be transformative.
I think that's fantastic. And, it's very encouraging to find someone who's so proactive and positive about it. And I think this will have a big impact on our listeners.
One other thing that I would add that I didn't bring up around how else HR can use this, and this is probably not going to be everyone's jam, but I'm vibe coding now. So I am trying out this whole space of vibe coding. It is really, really impressive to start. For example, I initially played with Manus.
And by the way, you may want to explain to people what vibe coding is.
Yeah. So vibe coding is this idea that now we no longer need software engineers to write software, to create software, that we all now have the tools available to us to write software using normal human language. Right? I don't need to understand code at all. If I have an idea that I would love software to do, I have the ability to just start saying, hey, I'd like to create this tool. For example, the thing that I'm vibe coding right now, I really want some sort of interview guide generation tool. And I've not found anything that exists in this space that does quite what I want it to do. So I'm vibe coding the thing, I'm bringing into existence the thing that I've always looked for as a point solution. I've started in Lovable, which is the tool you can start there to design the UI. In literally 10 sentences, I could describe roughly what the application is, and it creates it. It is mind-blowing. So then you say, oh, okay, now I want to tweak it. I want to make it a different color. And you just say, change the color to purple. And it changes it to purple. And then I say, move this button from here to there. And it does it. And so it's like having a software engineer working for me, but I'm just doing it in my spare time. Now I've moved on to, I've reached the limits of that. So now I have using Cursor, which is what software organizations are using for their software engineers. So now I'm getting into industry strength stuff. Teeny bit of a learning curve, but I'm confident that give me another week or two. I was hoping to be there by this call. I will have built the application that I want. And I might be 40 hours of my time in over a 3-4 month period, just working a couple hours here and there on the weekends, learning and pushing it along. And so in 40 hours of my time, I could have an application that does exactly what I want for my specific situation. And I think that's pretty cool. And part of me wonders if this gets good enough, if I will buy HR software in the future.
I'm really grateful for your insights, Kim. It's been a really helpful and inspiring conversation. And just really appreciate the call outs too around HR's central role in this. Whether or not we're comfortable with tech, when you think about change management, enabling organizations, all the roles we have to play in that regard. And in addition, this tech makes it easier for us to be technologically savvy regardless. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. I love to share all of this information with HR. I am passionate about our role. I would add resources to learn more that I've found very useful. So in the spirit of curating, obviously Josh Berson's podcast is excellent. Josh Berson is saying all of these things to HR. He is making a very, very compelling case for us to play a leadership role. Another great podcast is the AI Daily Brief, and it's a 20-minute a day. It brings you up to speed on how organizations are implementing AI, Agentic AI, what's going on in the news for AI. Those are two really powerful resources to learn more.
Thank you. This has been a short conversation. If listeners would like to learn more, to connect, what's the best way for them to do so?
The best way to connect with me would be connect with me on LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn and connect there.
Thanks for listening to the HR Chat Show. If you enjoyed this episode, why not subscribe and listen to some of the hundreds of episodes published by HR Gazette? And remember, for what's new in the world of work, subscribe to the show, follow us on social media, and visit hrgazette.com.